election results. Earlier today, I sat down with Georgia's Republican Governor Kemp in Washington, who made news on whether or not he is considering running in the crowded 2024 field, saying it's not in it for him. Governor, thank you for joining us here in Washington. Normally, I would probably ask this question last, but because of some comments you made recently, I'm going to ask it first. Have you fully closed the door on running for president in 2024?
Well, I have a lot of people writing a lot of different things about me in 2024, and I've said, look, in politics, there's always doors opening and closing. I got a great job right now. I personally feel like having more people in the race does not help us win and beat Joe Biden. So, you know, I'm certainly not running for president, but there's always doors open in politics depending on how things play out, and we'll see what happens.
You do know this field of people who are running pretty well, a few other sitting governors. What do you make of the current race? Is there anyone that you would think could actually beat Donald Trump?
Well, it doesn't seem like there's a lot going on right now. I mean, there is with the fundraising numbers coming out, but the race has been pretty stagnant if you're looking at all the national polls. But, you know, I kind of take that with a grain of salt. You're in the fixing to be in the dog days of August, and, you know, it just hasn't been a lot of movement. But I think people are getting their legs under them now, and so I think there's still a long way to go in the race, and we'll see where that goes.
Are you surprised that Governor DeSantis has not gained more traction? I mean, you reference the polls, you talk about the fundraising. Are you surprised he hasn't been a more formidable challenger to Trump so far?
If you talk to his camp, they're doing a lot of really good things. You know, a lot of good things on the ground, and they're in it for the long haul. I think Ron was in a pretty tough spot when he got in the race. His numbers were so high before he got in some ways he didn't have anywhere to go. And now he's gotten in a stagnant place, but they're making a lot of changes. But there's a lot of other great candidates in the race. A lot of friends of mine are in the race, and so I'm continuing to watch and see where they go. But my thing is, Kaitlan, we got to win. You know, we got to have a candidate that can win and can beat Joe Biden and can win in states like Georgia. There is no path for us to win the White House if we can't win Georgia. And so that's what I've stayed focused on, and really I've had a message to every candidate out there. Listen, we have to tell the American people what we are for. We got to be forward thinking and tell them what we're going to do. We can't be looking in the rearview mirror. And then we got to have a candidate that can beat Joe Biden in November.
You say the road to the White House must include Georgia. I mean, can Donald Trump win Georgia? He's the front runner right now.
Well, I think he can because Joe Biden's been such a bad president. His approval ratings are just terrible in the state of Georgia right now. So I think he can. I also think he can lose Georgia. If he's not doing what I said, telling people what he's for, staying focused on the race, quit looking back at the 2020 election. I mean, for goodness sakes, that was 2.5, 3 years ago now. The American people want to know, what are you going to do for me to help me offset the bad policies of Joe Biden? I mean, Biden talks about, you know, the middle out. We're going to grow the economy from the middle out and the bottom up. The only thing coming out of the middle right now is people's money coming out of their wallet.
You apparently said at a Republican donor retreat recently that, quote, not a single swing voter in a single swing state will vote for our nominee if they choose to talk about the 2020 election being stolen. But the Republican frontrunner is still saying that. He still talks about it all the time.
I think if he continues to do that, he's going to lose Georgia in November. I mean, people are not worried about the past, regardless of how you feel about the election. You know, if you're a Republican and you feel like, you know, if you're a moderate Republican or, you know, if you're a center-left independent or center-right independent, they are not worried about the 2020 election right now. And if you feel like the election was stolen, and I know there's people that are out there that do, there's others that, you know, don't, but it doesn't really matter.
You said you'll do what you can to get the Republican nominee elected, even if it's Trump?
I'm going to certainly be supporting a Republican nominee to beat Joe Biden.
But Trump pressured you to overturn the election. He wanted you to call a special session. He said he was ashamed that he had endorsed you because you didn't do. You said you couldn't do what he wanted you to do there. I mean, he called you hapless. Even despite all of that, you would still work to get him elected if he's the nominee.
He was mad at me. I was not mad at him. I told him exactly what I could and couldn't do when it came to the election, and I followed the law and the Constitution. And as I've said before, that's a lot bigger than Donald Trump. It's a lot bigger than me. It's a lot bigger than the Republican Party. and that's what I'm going to continue to do as the governor, and that's what I did in 2020. But despite all of those things, I believe anybody running for president right now is a Republican that would be better than what we're seeing with the Biden-Harris administration.
I just think it might surprise some people that you would work to help get him elected, given your history with him.
Well, I would ask a lot of people. I mean, I have people that say, I just can't go there and do that. But, I'm thinking of, the next president's going to be picking probably another Supreme Court justice and, judges on the Court of Appeals and federal judgeships and, dealing with strengthening our military and standing up to our adversaries around the world. And who would you want to be your president? I mean, that's the question that everybody's got to ask themselves. He may or may not be the nominee. So we'll wait and see.
Meanwhile, in Georgia, Fani Willis, the Fulton County District Attorney, is close, we are told, to announcing a charging decision in her investigation. Of course, it's gone on for two years now, into Trump and his allies' efforts to overturn the results in your state. Are you surprised that it's taken this long to announce if there are going to be charges?
Well, I'm probably more disappointed that it's taken this long. People are wondering, why is this taking so long? Why haven't we had resolution? So I think that just sows distrust in the system, which is unfortunate. That's not what people should be feeling, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. So it is, in my eyes, frustrating, but we'll see what she comes out with at the appropriate time.